go. We're standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to have Stacy read out the roll call.
Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite is absent. Councilman Brian Laux.
Brian Laux, Council at Large, present.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan is absent. Councilwoman Michelle Coletti.
Councilwoman Michelle Coletti, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan.
Councilman Edward McMillan, 5th District, present.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan is absent. Councilwoman Catherine Tucker is absent. Councilman Christopher Vargo.
Councilman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
Councilwoman Katie Muller.
Councilwoman Katie Muller, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone is absent. And Chairman Nicholas Pascal.
Chairman Nicholas Pascal, present.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
First on our list tonight is our engineering department, Abdul Gatir. Well, welcome, Mr. Gatir. Did you want to present your budget to us?
Good evening. This is Abdul Qadir, City Engineer. First on the agenda is the engineering budget. It's basically the same as last year. There's a little bit decrease actually. If you look at the budget, professional services line item has been decreased because I have enough money in the budget already that I don't need that money. So I cut it down.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gatir? Councilman Laux?
Thank you, Councilwoman Akbarali. How are you, and thanks for coming. I guess the big question for me is, the budget that you presented, does that make you whole as an organization?
Not really.
Not really.
Yes. But based on city's financial condition, we are trying to do whatever we have.
Sure. This is kind of an off-topic question, and I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. But in terms of like engineering software for your operation, have you made any provisions for any upgrades in technology or anything like that?
I don't have anybody to use those software. I mean, we had all the equipment, but there's nobody here to use it.
Okay. What do you currently use? I mean, do you guys use AutoCAD or anything like that?
We're not using it. We do have CAD, but we're not using it right now.
You have CAD, but you don't use it.
Yes.
And what is that a function of? You just don't have the headcount to do it?
Yes, that's correct. I don't have time to use the CAD because there's so much work that I only pay attention to what needs to be done right away.
Have you thought of, or have you made any proposals to, I don't know, your leadership, for lack of a better word, in terms of those needs? Have they been discussed, and are you just here with the budget because there's not too much you can do, and you don't have junior engineers that could run that software and that sort of thing?
I had the assistant engineer before who was using the software, but when he retired, for past 3 years, we don't have anybody, and we can't get anybody.
Yeah.
We have been advertising every year, but there's no response.
Okay. So you have AutoCAD, you have the software,
Yes.
I mean, but nobody uses it because...
Yes.
Okay. You just don't have the headcount or the personnel to do it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
Excellent. Councilman Donovan?
Good evening, Abdul. The money that went up for the assistant engineer, do you think that would help at all? Boosting it another 5,000? Would that maybe draw some? I know assistant engineers want buco bucks.
Problem right now is on the private sector, there is so much demand and their salaries are much, much higher than here. So nobody is applying here. I tried to increase 5,000. I don't think I'm going to get it. It's still not, nobody replying.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilwoman Coletti.
Thank you, Councilwoman Riley.
You're welcome.
Hi, Abdul. What would you say the average would be to attract an assistant engineer?
It's going to be around $140,000.
140,000? And right now, what you have in the budget is
115. Yes.
Okay. How long have you been without an assistant? How long have you been the sole engineer for the city?
For 3 years, past 3 years.
3 years. Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilman Vargo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Abdul, you're a one-man show, right?
Sorry?
You're a one-man show. You're the only one in your department.
That's correct.
How much time do you think? Sorry. How much time do you think you spend on a weekly basis dealing with long-term projects versus you're being called because there's a problem and you need to address it right away?
I probably spend maybe about 70% of my time on long-term projects.
And 30% on the emergencies that pop up.
Yes.
And if you had an assistant engineer, you would be able to offload some of that work to that individual, and
Yes.
and would that make it so that the city could respond to current emergencies quicker and possibly complete long-term projects faster?
It will help because what I'm doing is right now, because I don't have any staff, a lot of work is being given to outside consultants.
And that's costing us quite a bit of
Costing
money.
2-3 times than what we will spend here.
Where is that in your budget, the consultant money?
If you look at that 250,000 item,
Is that the MS4 mandate?
MS4 mandate, yes.
What is an MS4 mandate?
It's a stormwater management. We have required to do testing every year, all the outfalls, plus we have to complete all the mapping in the city. We have to see we have to clean the catch basins. This is just to actually, we don't have a record. It's just to prepare a map, what we have, the assets that right now we have. And every year we have to file a report, annual report for MS4 permit.
And how much of the 250 is allocated for specifically that work versus consultants?
It's completely consultant work, 250,000.
For that?
100%, yes.
Okay. So if you needed consultants for another project, where would that money come from?
It has to be part of a capital budget.
Okay. And I understand that you don't think 5,000 is enough and you think the number's around 140. Is there another professional or another type of employee that we could hire that would help alleviate the burden that you have, but maybe not get you to exactly where you want to be? Is there a stopgap measure we could have?
We can hire maybe a fresh or 1 or 2 year off the school. We can hire that person, but he won't have the licenses that the job calls for.
Is there a position between somebody that is unlicensed and an assistant engineer? Is there a middle step somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, if a person has a couple of years experience, that will help a lot, but he won't have the license. That's the job posting that city has require the license.
Is there, okay, I guess let me ask a different way. Is there another job posting that we could create that would help you that's not to the level of an assistant engineer?
Yes, it can.
And what would that be?
Just the engineer.
Just an engineer. And that's an unlicensed individual?
Yes.
So that person would work under you. You would make the determinations of what work needs to be done, and that person would carry out the task, and you would oversee it?
Yes.
Just off the top of your head, what's the budget for that?
We probably can go around. Right now, the fresh graduates are getting around $85,000.
$35,000?
$85,000.
$85,000. What happens if the individual has 5 years experience?
You're not going to get anybody.
You're not going to get anybody. Okay. If we could jump to page 127, which is your capital requests.
Mm-hmm.
A number of these projects are listed to be funded by grants. Are those grants that we have been approved for, or is there still a process for us to get?
We will be applying for those grants.
So that's not. So
None
there's
of
no
the
guarantee
grants
we have
are
that
in
money.
place yet, no.
Okay. Is there anything in here that would be funded by grant money that would be catastrophic if we don't get the money for this year? Something that we have to do?
Well, there are projects we are not going to go ahead if we don't get the grants because there is no funding available
Right.
for the capital projects. We applied for like on outfall pipe, which is the top priority. We applied for 3 years now. We are not getting it.
Okay. And I think my final question is, if I look at your fiscal year 25 and 26 bonding package here, and I understand that these aren't set in stone numbers. This is a plan. This is a
Right.
wish list. But for FY25, your bonding number is 14,673,000, and in 26, your bonding number is 52,750,000. That's not realistic, and I think because it's such a huge number, do we have options for this?
No, because if we start a project, if the project costs $40 million, we have to approve the bonding ordinance for that amount of money. We not have to spend that year, but it has to be bonded, that money.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can't start the project.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Abdullah, I just had a quick question for you. For the professional services, they significantly decrease by FY25 in the mayor's recommended budget. Can you explain that to me, please? It is item 52480.
I'm sorry, for engineering?
Yes.
The only decrease that I have requested is the professional services.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I have money in that budget. It's a 5-year non-recurring account,
Okay.
so I don't need this additional money.
Okay.
If
For
I need it
FY25.
at the end of fiscal year, the assistant engineer, if we don't get anybody, that money can be transferred into account that we could use for engineering
Okay.
projects.
That makes sense. Thank you so much, Abdul. Councilman McMillan.
Aye. Yes, it will help. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Councilman Tucker?
Aye, good, thanks. Engineer would be like a fresh graduate, maybe 1 year out of college or 2 years out of college. No license. You have to have a 4-year experience before you can get a license. Not right now, but a lot of people are getting around 130, 140, but it depends. If somebody gets a license, yes. Right, yes.
Any other questions? Councilman Coletti?
Thank you,
You're
Chairwoman.
welcome.
2 questions. First, you mentioned the MS4 mandate and mapping out catch basins. There's also a similar allocation of funds from ARPA funding to map out the catch basins. Is that the same exact project, or are there 2 different projects?
It's MS4 related work.
I'm sorry?
It's MS4 related work. That's actual work. What ARPA is doing, the actual work. What this is doing is actually planning and identifying all the assets.
Okay, so this is a third-party consultant identifying the assets, and then the ARPA funding is not identifying the assets and mapping, but they're executing the cleaning of the catch basin?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. That was in my understanding. I thought there was also mapping work being done there, so we just wanted to make sure there was an overlap there.
We have used for mapping 500,000 ARPA money. Yes, we have used from ARPA.
Okay. And in your mind, having the extensive knowledge that you've gained for so many years serving West Haven, in terms of a transition, I'm not asking if when,
Yeah.
a retirement might happen, but in the event, if you decided to retire, would that person that you would see as your assistant now, at that point, you would say, okay, there's been enough transition time, that person could possibly take over.
If that person acquires the license,
Right.
for city engineer, you have to have a license.
So in terms of it being an assistant engineer at the 140,000, that would be someone licensed that could possibly take over for you. But
Yes.
if it were just an engineer at 85,000, they couldn't take over for you for 4 years.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make that distinction. That's all for me. Thank you.
Councilman Tucker?
Hi. I guess I have another question, I hope you didn't answer it before I got here, and I apologize for being a little late. But the studies that have been done in the past about those basins that are causing flooding in a lot of our areas, there's been studies that people have alluded to, like in the past. Do you still have the information or the outcomes from the studies available to you?
I don't think we have done too many studies on the flooding. The only last study we have done was in 1977.
Interesting, because we've heard people report here a few times that there have been studies done, that there have been funds spent and studies done that kind of showed where the problems were.
No, those studies were basically when there is a problem, somebody visited the site and made a couple of page report. That's it. It's not really a study. We are just initiating two studies right now.
Yeah, I've heard about those being recently
Yes.
initiated, but I just was curious about the results of the studies or the work that had been done in the past, and trying to see whether or not there were significant changes that would make those invalid, or there would be something that could have called for a new study to be done, or need for a new study to be done, or could we use the information, that we have to kind of correct some of the problems if the corrections were never made, after those studies were completed.
Yeah, as I mentioned, that comprehensive study was done in 1977.
That was the last study.
Right.
But, okay. Thank you.
I mean, those problems are still there, which was identified in the report, actually gotten worse since then.
Yeah, it sounds like there have been other, there's been other, I don't want to call them studies because you're clearly saying that that's not what they're called, but there's been work that has been done that
Well,
others have reported out in these meetings.
We have done quite a few projects. I mean, those were part of the studies and the design and construction, not just the study that we have not implemented. All those studies that we did, we implemented those.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Vargo?
I apologize. I wrote my note down on the wrong page, and I asked you about a budget that's not yours. The question I actually did mean to ask you is, one of your goals this year is to complete the railroad and frontage road bike path. Is there paving? Do you know if there's paving part of that project?
There is a paving, but that paving has to be done by the city.
Okay. And I wanted to follow up on something that Councilwoman Coletti had asked. Since you're a one-man show and you have a lot of legacy knowledge, presumably in your head, what happens if you take an extended leave of absence? What does the city do?
City will be in trouble.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Heffernan?
Now, good evening.
Good evening.
Do you ever take on engineering students to help you, or people that are getting their capstone to graduate from, engineering schools in like Central Connecticut or Yukon? Do you ever get interns? I don't know what they would call them in engineering, or what the actual term
They are
would be.
intern, but I don't have the budget to hire interns. In the budget, I don't have any money.
What kind of budget do you think you
Well,
would
there
need
has
for
to
that?
be some money, but then it has to be. Problem is, it's also a union. I don't know what restriction they may have.
Well, if you were going to be a paid internship, I see.
Yes.
You couldn't create a stipend or
mean,
something for a young
I had for a
engineer?
couple of months a student who graduated. Actually, he wanted to get a job, but he was not a license, so I couldn't offer him a job. I mean, he was helpful for a couple of months.
So
And
you have had that kind of program
but
in
it
the
was
past,
paid through
like a
legal
grant or
office.
something, or. And did you find him helpful, or was it hard having someone to supervise as well as performing your own duties?
It's difficult if it's fresh graduate. You have to supervise them, and I don't have that much time to go after him. That's the problem.
Right. But if you had a student that was like a higher level student,
If person has a few years experience, then I don't have to spend too much time with them.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam
You're
Chairman.
very welcome. Councilman Vargo.
How many hours per week do you generally put in?
It's hard to say. I mean, I come at 9 o'clock, 8:45, and leave at 5. So I work during lunch hour also.
5 days a week?
Yes.
And do you sometimes have to come in and perform services on weekends
I,
or stay
on the
late?
weekend, I do check my emails and reply those emails.
Do emergencies pop up that you'll have to
I don't
be on?
answer.
Are you on call essentially?
Yes.
How often? Just ballpark. How often, like per year, does that?
Not lately. Few years ago, when I had nobody, I used to go at night at 12 o'clock at night. I had to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Councilman Locks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to build on what Councilman Vargo and Councilwoman Coletti said is that, I've had 3 1-hour sessions with Public Works, and it's quite evident that they've been set up for failure. Okay? I've been here 20 minutes. I can tell you've been set up for failure. And the reason I say that is because we're a financially strapped city, and we're extremely reactive. But the goal is, over maybe 5 years, is to become more of a proactive place rather than a reactive place. So, it's clearly evident to me that, because I've been in your shoes and I know how it's like. And I don't want to take the wind out of your sails. I'm sure it's difficult to get through a day, in terms of what's on your plate, the emergencies that come across your desk, and trying to use AutoCAD the way it should be used, not having the FTEs or the resources to execute that. So I personally would like to make a motion that we look at the current state of your budget. There's a future state of your budget where you're whole, and how do we strike that happy medium to get you more help that you need? I'm looking at this. The salary range for an assistant city engineer in the Northeast for a city of 50,000 residents can vary depending on factors such as experience, education, and the specific city's budget. Typically, it would range from 60 to 90,000 per year. For a city engineer in a city of 50,000 residents in the Northeast, salary range is usually higher due to the increased responsibilities. It could range from $80,000 to $120,000 per year, depending on factors such as experience, qualifications, and the city's budget. And the thing is, as council people, we have to think about the future and succession and all that other stuff in addition to meeting the expectations of the mayor's budget. So we got to think ahead. We can't live for today. We got to think about what the future holds. So I personally would never sign off on this budget for you. I find it totally unacceptable, and it's very unfair. But we have a strapped financial city. So I guess I would like to make a motion that we somehow get the details on a current state and future state, and how can we work with those numbers or those values to come with something that makes a little more sense and is a little more fair for your engineering department. And I don't know what the mechanism is for that, but I would like to make a motion to do that.
So, if I may?
Absolutely.
Okay. So with these motions, we can, increase or decrease a line item.
Yep.
In the budget.
Okay.
That's probably it. It sounds to me like it might be. Yeah, maybe you might want to call a caucus and discuss it, and then come out with proper language?
That's perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so we're not really making a motion right now, we're just entertaining
Okay.
the idea of it.
Okay.
Right? No, we,
Yep, just rescind your motion.
I got it. I'd like to rescind that motion that I just made.
Thank you, Councilman Locks.
do you all want to go into caucus now, or no?
I don't know. Listen, I'll leave it up to you.
Right,
So you-
Yeah, I would just talk about it quickly now because I think we could probably put it to bed. So, yeah,
Yeah, and we'll go into a recess. Okay?
yes.
Going to a recess for caucus.
At 6:26.
All right, we are coming back into our meeting. Thank you, Abdul. And any other questions for Mr. Gadir this time? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Abdul, I want to revisit the MS4 mandate, line item 56110 for 250,000. Is that all of the money that the city spends for that project, or is there another funding source that gets added to that?
No, I had mentioned before 500,000 for ARPA money that I used this year.
Okay. So that's 500 plus the 250.
That's correct.
So the entirety is $750,000. Is that annually?
No, that was for this particular year.
Do you have an estimate of what for July 1 of 24 to June 30 of 25? What's that going to cost?
I have a $250,000 budget in there.
Is there any money coming from ARPA in
No,
the next fiscal year?
that's strictly city.
Strictly city. And you don't think that we'll exceed that?
I'm sorry?
You don't think that we will exceed 250,000?
I mean, we just budget 250,000 because we can use more money, but we spread it over 4 or 5 years. So that's why every year I'm budgeting $250,000.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Abdul, the $10,000 for FY25 request and the mayor's recommended budget for line item 52480 professional services, is that money that you absolutely need for professional services? Or could
No.
Okay.
That's why I cut it down, because if I need some money, I have money that I transferred last year. I'm using that money for professional services right now.
Okay, and if you don't need that money for professional services, you would just hold that aside as money you would need for other services in the engineering department, or how would you use that money?
It can only be used for professional services.
Okay. All right, awesome. Any other questions for Abdul? Councilwoman Tucker.
Do you recall there being any assessments done of the Sanford Street flooding? The flooding in that area of West Haven?
We just interviewed the consultant. We're going to hire a consultant probably next couple of weeks, and then they will start the project.
I'm sorry, can you please say that again?
We are going to hire the consultant in about 2 to 3 weeks. After we hire the consultant, then they will start that project.
Has there been any work done to evaluate the flooding in the past, say, 10 years that you're aware of?
No. I mean, we know, I have seen it many times. I know what the issues are, but there's no formal study done.
There's no documentation of what the issue is anywhere in your office?
No, we know because we don't have enough capacity on the existing storm sewer system. They are very inadequate. They just can't handle the flow.
Okay, and was that done by the consultants that you work with?
No, I did that part myself.
Okay. And so now, since you've done that evaluation yourself, but it still needs to have a formal study done?
Yeah, we have to. I only looked at the Sanford Street area and Lydia Street area. Now we are broadening it up all the way from Terrace Avenue all the way to Route 1, because Daytona Street gets flooded with heavy rain. I went there to look at it. I couldn't pass through. I had to return.
Yeah, I know that they get really beat up when it rains.
This study will identify. We know we don't have adequate sewer, but that may not be the only solution. We're looking at, there is a large area that the city owned, part of it is undeveloped, it cannot be developed. We're going to use that maybe as a storage area.
Okay.
So that will reduce the requirement on the sewer lines.
Okay. And then the other question that I have is about, you mentioned that you have funding, or that you and you don't need this. You're holding on to funding, or you have unspent funds. Are we not required to share, which line accounts still have funds left in them?
That's
Budget?
5-year capital non-recurring expense. It's not a regular budget item.
So, I'm sorry, 5-year capital
Non-recurring,
non-recurring expense.
yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Because I need to have a different year. If I put in 1 year, then it's gone after a year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Abdul? Councilwoman Coletti.
Thank you, Chairwoman. One follow-up question. Would you say there's been, due to time limitation on grant funding for projects, infrastructure projects, would you say there's been any lost funding due to you not having anyone but yourself in the office? If you had additional help, has there been any lost money with grants that has had to go back or wasn't able to be executed because we didn't have the right staff or the right help?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Councilman Locks.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that I look at this as extremely high risk for the city of West Haven. The fact that we're very much in reactive mode. And if we do not do something about it today, we're going to be talking about the same thing a decade from now. So I just think that this is very, very high risk for the city. Just want to make that comment.
Thank you. Any other questions for Abdul? Councilman Varga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Abdul, I just want to revisit your office a little bit. I know that you have a lot of information stuffed in your head. Is that information documented somewhere physically?
Most of it's documented, but it's going to be very difficult. Because I was single person. I don't have even a clerk to file any information. So it's really spread all over the place. There's no real way to find it out.
So even though you have a lot of information in your head, there's still there is paper somewhere, but trying to sift through your office to figure out what's what is going to be hard.
Yeah, I know where to go and look for. I can find it, but if somebody else comes, it's going to be very difficult. You may have to spend a lot of time.
And your records in your office are not digitized, is that correct? It's all paper?
No, it's all on paper.
Would you benefit from an administrative assistant at least a few hours a week?
I think this year I do get one person now.
You get one personnel?
Yes.
Are you sharing that with another department?
No, it's basically mine now.
Okay.
Full time almost.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Abdul regarding the engineering department budget? Councilman Coletti.
Thank you. To follow up, is that in this budget? The one
It's-
person?
No, it's part of the public works budget.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All set? You're very welcome. Any other questions for Abdul? Councilman McMillan.
Thank you.
Next month will be 40 years.
I'm sorry, 40 years. You said.
Four, yes.
Okay. And in those 40 years, you've never had anyone here to assist you?
No, when I started, I have 7 people. We were total 7 people in the engineering department. And now it's been 1.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Abdul? Thank you, Abdul, so much for going over the budget for engineering. But we will need you to stay for the next meeting, which is our water pollution control meeting.
Yes.
All right, very good. Abdul, I had a question for you regarding the superintendent for the sewer. Are we not planning on having this person in FY25? As it doesn't look like they're going to be, or it doesn't look like their salary is going to be in our budget.
It's
Is
in
it
the
recommended?
budget. If you look at the first line item, sewer operation admin.
I apologize. Nope, it's in there. I was looking at the wrong thing. Anyone have questions for Abdul regarding Councilman Donovan?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So it looks like we gained a mechanic 1 and lost an operator 1. Is that correct? Am I on the right?
No, it shouldn't. We shouldn't lose any operator.
Looks like we're down 1 operator 1. Is that because they went to a 2? Do you know?
Yeah, they shifted. Yes.
Because in 24 approved was 2 people there. Now it's 3. That's why I was asking. So that operator
Yeah,
1 went to operator 2, correct?
We had originally budgeted 27%. Right now they were operating at 24, so they're going to add some people.
Okay. The other question I have, how do we heat that facility? Is it by oil?
I'm sorry?
How do we heat the facility?
We don't need, we use gas heaters.
So what's the heating oil for?
It's actually a misnomer. It shouldn't be heating oil. It's actually sludge disposal. We are shipping the sludge out to Naugatuck, and that's the line item we are paying for it.
So heating oil should not be heating oil. It should be something else.
It used to be heating oil when we were running the incinerator. We were buying the oil at that time.
What should that line? What?
Now we are using the same line item. They didn't change the line item.
It doesn't change the line. I mean the money. I would just like to see, because it looks like we're heating with gas and then we're heating with oil according to.
No, the heating oil is actually sludge disposal line item.
What's that?
Councilman Coletti?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Absolutely.
sorry.
Just push it. Yep.
Apologies. So from my tour of the treatment facility, when we were actually using the incinerator, the oil was used to heat and work the incinerator.
Right.
But instead, that line item is going to trucking, right? So trucking out the solid waste instead of the heat funds being used for the oil, it's being used for trucking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I thank you for that.
Thank you.
But I still think that the name should be changed.
It should be changed
It's
to
very
really
confusing if people
biosolid disposal.
Yeah,
solid
it should
disposal.
be changed to that, correct? All right.
But
You know, like disposal fees or something, right? We'll talk about how we go about doing that. And the only other thing I seen here that I had, I know people got a lot, but and I talked to the mayor about this already, and I'm glad to see the sewer fees. They wanted to jack those sewer fees up, and the mayor kept it down, dropped it by $628,000, which is good. That means our residents won't be paying more sewer tax and stuff, as much as.
yeah, sewer use fee is going to go every year quite a bit, because by 29 we are projecting at 700 and around $800.
I know how much it would cost already to get that whole thing up and running, and hopefully eventually we could work on that, getting that money to the sewer treatment plant.
Yes.
All right, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair.
Abdul, line item 47680 on page 113, nitrogen credit has significantly gone up from FY23 to FY24. I'm sorry, has gone down. However, it's not projected for FY25. Can you give us a reason for that?
Which line item?
That is 47680 nitrogen credit.
Four seven. I don't have any line item. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's under revenue.
47. Okay. 47.
680.
Yes. We used to get nitrogen credit. We are not getting any more.
Okay.
Everybody has updated their plants, so nobody is buying it.
Okay. So that's why we're not projected to have that in
Yeah, we're not going to
FY25.
sell anymore.
Okay. But we will have the remainder of that in FY24.
I'm sorry?
We will have the remainder of the $11,865 in FY24.
Yeah, we're not going to get it, probably.
Okay. Any other questions for Abdul? Councilman Vargo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Abdul, I'm just looking on page 112 of the budget, and several employee categories are receiving substantial increases, and I just wanted to confirm: are these actual raises, or is this because certain folks were hired mid-year, so now you're funding the budget for the rest of the year, for the full year? For example, it's a 20% increase for the for collector, 29% increase for compliance inspector, 25% increase for lead collection, 11% for sewer inspector. Were all these positions fully filled this year?
They're not all fully, I don't believe they have all filled. There are still a couple of positions empty, but some of the people were hired mid-year or new hire, and they have step increases.
Okay. So these positions might not have been fully funded for a full 12 months
Yes.
in the current budget, but for FY25 they are funded
Yes.
for. That's why they're that big. Okay. Going to page 114, item 52770, other contractual services.
Yes.
You asked, and the mayor recommended a budget of $200,000.
Yeah.
When I look at the backup, I take a very close look at the 3-year averages, and I see in this year you're projected to spend 314, but that seems to be a bit of an outlier. Can you explain the difference between those two numbers?
Yeah, this is the work that we hired an outside contractor to do the work. This year we had a lot of issues with the equipment that has not been maintained. So we had to buy a new pump and also a centrifuge that we have to update. So we spent a lot of money on those equipment.
But that's not going to be needed next year?
Not next year, no.
Okay. For line 53435, chemicals, you asked for 210,000, and your 3-year average is about 126,000. And you're projected for this year is 170. Let's just say 178,000. Do you really need the 210? Do you think?
Which line item is this one?
Chemicals, 53435.
Under in-house sewer operations.
Yes.
Or the chemicals?
Yeah, I just look at the 3-year averages, and I look what the projection is for this year.
Yes.
And I try to compare, see how close, each department is, and I see when I see a number that is either in the budget for next year, that's a lot higher or a lot lower, I tend to
This
ask
chemical
questions.
prices have gone up a lot.
Okay.
We're using a polymer and the sodium hypochlorite. Both have gone up quite a bit this year.
For line item, again under in-house sewer operations, 54735, sewer claims workers' comp.
Yes.
Your projection for this fiscal year is 200,000. Your 3-year average is about 175. I'm sorry, your total projected expense is about 600,000, even though we're budgeted for 200,
Yes.
and you're asking for 400. Without going into specifics on individuals and whatnot, can you tell me what happened there?
We had two person injured. We actually got rid. One of the person is gone now. One is still active that we are paying him.
Okay. So is this something that our insurance actuary said?
We
that
are self-insured,
So we have to
pay
bump
out.
that up. Okay. And I want to revisit page 126, the 5-year plan. I misspoke during talking about the engineering department. I misspoke on that. So going to 125, I'm just curious. These are very high dollar amounts for this year and next year for bonding. And I know that these projects, in your opinion, are critical. If we are unable to bond this significant amount of money, is there a plan B that is at least being discussed?
No, I mean, if we are applying for grants for those projects, if we do get a grant, if we don't have the bonding capacity, then we won't be able to do those projects.
Is there anything in the budget for any of those projects, or are we relying on our bonding and grant abilities?
Well, we are actually relying a lot on the grants. Like outfall pipe, we are looking only city, we are trying 25% and 75% we are looking for grant.
That's for the outfall pipe, you said?
Yes. Same as the flood hardening study, that I'm 80% sure we're going to get it this year. I'm expecting a FEMA visit next week. So we are at the final stages of firing out that one out. I think that project will go ahead.
Do you know if the terms of clean water fund loans are better than generally what we get from bonding?
Oh, a lot better.
The terms are better? Interest rates are better, payments?
Some of the clean water fund, if we get 20% grant and 80% loan at 2% interest for 20 years.
Is there a cap to how much money we can get from those loans versus bonding?
No, I mean, some of the clean water fund that we get is a 100% loan. There is no grant. So it's a 2% interest for 20 years. Whatever the cost is, if they approve it, if it's 20 million or 40 million, we get at that 2%.
And just to follow up on Councilman Donovan, I think I missed it. It is confirmed that we added a mechanic 1 and an operator 2, and we removed an operator 1.
That I'm not sure because I don't do those transfers. That's done at the plant.
Okay. Is there a this might be a silly question, but we have an operator 2 and an operator 4. Is there an operator 3?
We don't have we have one operator 4 right now, and he doesn't want to. We were asking him to manage be a superintendent. He refused. He doesn't want that. So basically, he's working a operator 3 work.
So he's doing I'm sorry, can you say that part again?
He is an operator 3 work. He's doing it, but he has a license for 4.
So he doesn't want to become licensed to receive the operator 3 designation?
No, operator 3 is under him. Operator 4 is the top grade.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got you. Okay. I got you. So he doesn't want the managerial
He doesn't want the managerial work.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I think I am all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Councilwoman Coletti?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Okay. Who is responsible for the WPCA budget oversight on a typical quarterly basis, let's just say? You?
I mean, I look at the budget, yes.
Okay.
But what we have every monthly meeting, the budget is, the expenditure are presented at the meeting.
Okay. So you would be aware of all upcoming capital expenses, any failure capital expenses, any additional capital expenses that occur?
Yeah, we prepare a 5-year capital plan, so those
Right.
anticipated projects are in there.
Let's just say there's a pump failure, like there was last year.
Yes.
So remediation of that failure would fall under an unexpected expense.
Yes.
Is the budget's goal from sewer fees separate from property tax dollars to
Yes.
break even?
No, the water pollution budget is completely separate. There is no
Right.
mixing up with the city
No,
budget.
no, I'm sorry. So, but is the goal of the budget to break even? Because I know there was some discussion of kind of incinerator versus trucking on an ongoing basis. To Councilman Donovan's point, so I think that line item was left in there possibly because they were thinking about revisiting the incinerator versus permanently trucking.
Yeah, the problem with that issue is right now we have been trucking this sludge to Naugatuck. It's not 100% sure that's going to be available next 3-4 years. Initially, when we started in 2017, we were paying them $600,000. Now it's almost $1.3 million. And it's going to keep going up. And when they are overloaded, they don't even accept our sludge. So it's backed up here and it creates problem of our process operations because we have no place to hold the sludge.
So the only way to remedy that would be in your capital bonding request for incinerator rebuild for $30 million.
Well, we're looking at two options right now. Incinerator is one option that a lot of people prefer, but there is another option is gasification that I'm looking at it right now. Because incineration,
Gasification, it's a process, but I don't believe anyone else in the state does it currently, right?
I'm sorry,
I don't believe anyone else currently does it in Connecticut yet, right?
which one?
Gasification, or
No,
maybe
no,
wrong.
nobody does that.
No one
Not
does
in
it yet.
state.
So we would potentially be the first, if that were.
In the Connecticut,
route.
yes.
Right.
But there are a couple of operating in other states.
Okay. Have you looked into when let's say when a developer comes to you or whatever authority needs approval, have you looked into one-time connection tap fees if there are, additional drain on the system, so to speak?
Well, Water Pollution Commission is looking at a one-term connection fee for new installations, but that's not going to be a big income source. There's not too many connections done every year.
Well, I think if you have sites like the Haven or like other sites that plan on adding 100 units, 150 apartments, that's a significant potential income. So
Yes.
would definitely suggest looking into that. And then the only other item, I believe, let's see. Oh, you know what? No, I covered that point already. That's it for me. Thank you.
Excellent. You're very welcome. Councilman Fargo.
I'd like to revisit the capital bonding request for a minute. So for FY25 on the incinerator rebuild, the plan is potentially to bond $3 million, and then in FY26 bond $30 million. Is that the totality of the cost of that project?
At this point, that's what estimate is, yes.
Okay, so let's assume that we bond $3 million in FY25. Are you going to do anything with that money in FY25? Or do you need the rest of the 30?
Well, we can use the money for design. That's what it's going to cost to design the system.
So then the build would come when we get the 30 million.
When the actual construction starts, yes.
Okay. And for the outfall pipe reconstruction, the total is about 17.25 million over 3 years. So
No, that's the city share. Total is over $70 million.
correct. You're looking to bond 1.25 in 25,
Yes.
8 3/4 in 26, and 7.25 in 27. So that's 17 and
Yeah,
change, right?
that's city share.
So we're looking to bond that. So you could perform work in each of those years with that money. It's going to be we don't need all of the money up front in order to do the
That's
project.
correct. Yes.
Okay. And in your estimation, the incinerator, if it's going to be about 33 million, if we get that in by fiscal year 26, how long would it take to complete the project?
2-year project.
So it would be 28. So we're looking at 4 years from now.
No, 2-year project we are assuming is the both design and construction.
Okay. So we're only going to bond the 3 million. That'll get us through the design in FY25. The rest comes maybe in 26. So the whole the construction project part of that can be done in a year.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the outfall pipe? So we're looking at bonding that over a course of 3 fiscal years.
We are spreading it. If we get the FEMA grant, then we probably have to bond the entire money in 1 year, because they will not finance it if we don't have the bonding in place.
But the FEMA grant's also spread out over 3 years,
That's the
considerably.
actual expenses that we're going to incur, but the bonding probably has to take place initially.
So we would need the full 17,250 in one fiscal
We're
year.
not going to spend it, but we have to bond
We
it.
have to bond for that. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Very welcome. Councilwoman Tucker.
Once it's finished and up and running, is it a place that could be used by other communities, other towns? The same way we're shipping our waste to another place for it to be treated. Can that happen in the reverse?
The answer is yes.
Would it be profitable for us to do that?
We have been looking at it. A lot of people are against it because they don't want any trucking coming into our system.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Abdul? Councilman Pascal.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on page 126, the last line in the capital budget. So for fiscal year 25, it has bonding for odor control, but then nothing after that. What's the reason for that?
Right now, there's a lot of odor at the plant. We have been trying to do something with it, and there is an existing odor control system that has been shut down since 2017. We're trying to reactivate that part.
Okay, and so that $1 million will get that back up and running?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Councilwoman Coletti.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Let's follow up to Councilman Pascal's question. The room that currently houses the incinerator, that also the trucks come in and out of, the odor mitigation system that's been shut down may not necessarily resolve the issue once that's fixed, because part of the $30 million would also be repairing that part of the building, which is basically open with the solid waste right now. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Vargo.
In follow-up to Councilwoman Tucker, can you explain what is the pushback to using, if we rebuild the incinerator, what's the pushback that you're receiving to not taking in waste from other towns and generating revenue?
They're going to be trucked in sludge, which is odors, so there will be some odors.
Odor.
And when they unload it, there will be odor generated. So those are the issues. It's basically odor, and some people call traffic. I don't think traffic is an issue. You might get 2 truckloads a day. That's not a big issue.
Is that how often deliveries would be made? Is twice a day?
Yeah.
Roughly?
Yes.
Do you have any estimation of what that would do for our revenue?
We generate at this point about 6 dry tons a day, and if we upgrade the incinerator, that would be around 12 tons a day. So we can take almost same amount of sludge that we produce here. And right now, people are charging around $300 to $400 a ton.
So $300 or $400 a ton, and we could accept how much?
About at least 5 tons a day.
5 tons. Okay. And would that also have an impact on our operating costs?
It will increase a little bit, but not a lot.
So it would mostly drive up revenue, but it won't equally drive up the expenses. So we'll
Yes.
still see a positive outcome if we did that.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Abdul, for tools and miscellaneous equipment, line item 53250. I understand tools, but what would the miscellaneous equipment? What would we use?
Small equipment, tools, small motors, those things that they need.
Okay, so do you have a description of the equipment that would be used?
I can find it out from them, but it's small tools and motors.
Yeah, the tools I understand, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to have more of a description on the actual equipment itself.
Okay, I can get it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Abdul? Councilman Donovan.
Yeah, Abdul, just to excuse me, continue off of Councilwoman Tucker and Councilman Vargo's statement. Correct me if I'm wrong. If we do accept, and this was one of the issues I heard that could be a problem with that, not just the trucks coming in and the smell, but once we accept out-of-town sludge at that point, and we start burning that, we're responsible for anything emitted into the air, correct?
Yes.
So if they have something brought in that could potentially end up costing us a lot of money, is that one of the reasons as well, besides the trucking?
No, before we accept anybody's sludge, we have to get it tested. If it's
So
if
they
it's not
test
a
it
normal
before they
sludge,
get to
we will
the.
not accept it.
They get it tested before they bring it, or
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's tested at another facility
Yes.
in West Haven, or
No, I mean every facility they can test it. We can test it here as well.
okay. All right. Thank you.
'Cause when we are sitting with, we have to test our sludge before they will accept it. So
Is that Councilman Lux? No. Good. Thank you. Councilman McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. So, just listening to what you were explaining to Chairman Donovan. So, we're testing our sludge here, then we're just going to take it to hypothetically Orange, and will they check it again?
they do.
Okay, so then we're checking it here, and then we're checking it once it gets to the facility.
Yeah, we don't check every day because once they know what the system is, we only did 1 or 2 tests. That's it. After that, they don't test it because it's a municipal system. There shouldn't be any difference day to day.
But to Councilman Donovan's wording, I'm just saying, like, what if it were happening? If something were to happen, are we then responsible? And you had told him yes.
We are responsible if there is an issue, but we will go back to the municipality that we accepted it.
Okay, so
They will be ultimately responsible.
Okay, so it's just a once or twice checking of the sludge on 1 or 2 trips, and then after that, everything will be okay. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so then So why wouldn't we want to bring other municipalities here if we got our system to help? As Councilman Vargo spoke, just so wouldn't that help our revenue here if we were to bring other cities?
It will generate revenue for us.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Abdul? Councilwoman Callahan. I'm sorry. Muller, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
You're very welcome.
So, yes. I have a question. Gasification, is that some alternative type thing that we would do instead of transporting sludge?
Yes.
Can you explain more about that?
Yes. The process has been there for almost 20 years, but it's been used in defense industries or other industries, not on the municipalities. What they do is they take the sludge that we have or any solids, they dry it up first. Right now we produce sludge which is around 20 to 25% solids and 80 to 75% water. So they make it like 90% solids and 10% water. Then they have a special furnace. They burn it there. The temperature in that furnace is from 3,000 to 10,000 degrees Celsius. It's like a sun temperature. Everything becomes ions, gas, atoms. So there's no solid left. And then it's a hot gases. Then they use that hot gases to generate electricity. It's a closed loop cycle. So there is very little emissions, and there's about, if they burn about 13 tons dry ton and they get maybe 2 tons char, that's inert material that can be disposed of in landfill or land application or whatever.
Now, is that something that's really cost effective for?
Well, that's
our
what we're
city?
looking at this point. It's pretty close to the installation. They're both probably identical at this point.
And what other cities do that? I mean, what other states, I should say, because it's not Connecticut that does.
There are being installation being done in New Jersey. It's not operational yet. There's the one in Tennessee that has been in operation.
Thank you.
And a lot of other towns, their gasification by the different variety. There is, I believe, total of about 6 installations right now in progress. One is in Washington State. That has been in operation for 1 year. And there are 2 going on in Pennsylvania right now.
Thank you.
Councilman Fargo.
Is there a reason that that this hasn't taken off at all in Connecticut, other than the fact that it just we haven't caught up to it yet, or is there an environmental reason that we've shied away from it?
No, it's a new system that just came up for past couple of years.
Okay. And you said that the cost of, would we have to build a new facility or retrofit the facility we have now?
It's going to be a new facility.
And the cost of building that facility versus upgrading the facility we have now is about even, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware of any data that shows gasification is it dangerous, or does it have any other environmental risk that we should that
No, actually it's better for our
it's better?
environment.
Okay. So again, the bottom line is the reason why most that we haven't adopted is just
Even
we haven't caught up.
Installation is working, but we still have emissions. You have a particulate matter that goes out, plus we have some other material that goes out.
Do you know if there's any, if this is better for the environment, do you know if there's any EPA or other grant monies available? I'm sorry, am I still?
No, there is no grant. I'm looking at the possibility. The problem is that there are 2 types of gasification projects. One gasification that's working in other states right now, they operate at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a low temperature compared to the one I'm looking at is much higher temperature, and it's a proprietary. They do the installation, they do everything and operate. They're going to just charge us monthly charge. They will be responsible to build, operate, and maintain.
So they'll take the load of building the facility, and we pay them to.
Monthly, just like we are paying now, disposing of to any other town. So.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Councilman Tucker.
I was going to ask a similar question about what was available, since this seems like to be such economically friendly approach. Do you know whether or not they are offering any incentives from the government or from any other sources to invest in such technology?
I just had a meeting with Deep on whether they will entertain this idea gasification, because there is a no facility in Connecticut. They're very intrigued and they're receptive. They want a little more information. I'm going to talk to Deep to see if they will use this as a pilot project, Because if it's successful, that Connecticut needs it because there is no facilities here. There are 5 incinerators left. They are fully booked. There's no capacity, and there's no landfill, so they have no place to go.
What's the difference in temperature between the incinerator that we're currently using and the one that you're proposing? How?
The incinerator operates around 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. It's low temperature compared to gasification. The problem with incineration is if we upgrade the incinerator that we have budget right now, it does not treat what we call everyday chemical that people are listening
Forever
PFAS.
chemicals.
It doesn't treat them. If EPA, which I expect they're going to mandate by next year that they have to remove it, then we have to add cost to the installation because it will not handle it.
And would gasification address
Gasification
forever
will destroy it,
chemicals?
yes.
Destroys
It
forever.
destroys everything.
Thank you.
Councilman McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you ever visited any of the facilities that has gasification?
I have not. I plan to visit, but only if we decide to pursue it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
I think you should take a trip.
They have invited us. They will, before we proceed with it, they will say we have to send maybe a truckload of our sludge to them to burn it over there to make sure that it's going to work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Abdul, how much garbage are you able to put in this incinerator if we were to use it? And are we able to put substances like plastic or something that can potentially harm us if it's being gasified and that goes into the air? Does that destroy ozone layer, or how is that safe?
No, because for the installation, we can't add anything. It has to be just the sludge part. We can't add
So it's
any.
sorted out.
Yeah.
Okay.
For gasification, we can add food waste if we want to.
Okay.
Because what it does is atomize everything.
Right.
And what they call is the syngas is a hydrogen and carbon monoxide.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there was a sorting process that toxic products wouldn't be.
Won't be toxic anymore.
Okay. And how much are you able to put in these incinerators? How many pounds, I guess?
Well, our incinerator was permitted to put 1,120 pounds per hour.
Per hour.
Per hour.
Oh, wow. It's incredible.
So it's about 12 tons a day we
Yeah.
can burn it.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Councilman Vargo.
Just one question. You said that this would be a new facility, right?
Yes.
Is there a site location you have in mind?
We can two options. One is next to the existing building that we have insulation, or we can just demolish the insulated building and put it there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Heffernan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what kind of fuel oil you could use to get to 3,000 degrees Celsius? Isn't that like 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit?
What they have is they have electrodes. They apply electricity to them, and it creates an arc, electric arc. That's how they burn everything.
So it's electric.
Is everything ionized? It becomes gases.
Is that I would imagine that's kind of energy.
It's same like sun temperature is 10,000 degrees Celsius.
Yeah,
So
I was
that's
gonna
what
say
it is.
5,400. Isn't it like 3,000?
It varies the temperature from 3,000 to 10,000. In the inner part where the bark is about 10,000.
Wow.
And the outside is about 3 to 5,000.
So is that it? I don't know. I can't imagine how much energy that requires, though.
It doesn't require any energy because they're going to generate that energy.
It generates its own energy.
They're going to put a generator. They're estimating they can produce 700 kilowatt hours with the syngas.
And
They will recycle that.
because
They don't need.
it burns,
They don't
it
need any
creates more
electricity
energy.
for
As it
the
burns,
operation.
it creates more energy.
I'm sorry.
As it is atomized or gasified,
Yes.
it creates its own energy. Because
That
that's how
gas-
you're saying it produces electricity in this. It's almost like a steam engine.
Atomized. It produces syngas, which is hydrogen and carbon monoxide. They put through the generator and burn and create electricity.
So it creates its own energy to burn itself.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
I'm saying. That's okay.
Seeing that there are no more questions, thank you very much, Abdul,
Okay,
for
thank
your
you.
presentation and answering our questions.
Thank you. Yep.
Up next, we have Colleen Bailey with the West Haven Library. Absolutely.
I know in your budget packets you only have the one line item for the. Sorry, I lost my voice yesterday. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I do have. I'm good, thank you. I have, let's see, a quick presentation, and then I also have in here my budget asked the line by line, which is how I got my budget number, as well as what our actual expenses were for fiscal year 23, as those get passed around. So as I said, I'm Colleen Bailey. I'm the library director, for those that may not know me. Packets are getting passed around. Like I said, it's PowerPoint, and then it's also our budget numbers. Not sure how many of you are aware of this, but the library was actually a Carnegie library. The building itself actually opened in 1909. And the Village Improvement Association, which is the governing body of the library, was created in 1906 in part to help raise the funds to build that library. That's our kind of the reference room now that faces on Campbell Avenue there. So just a little history for you to start. The next page, I have some common library comparisons. We are very frequently compared to Milford, Stratford, Hamden, Meriden, and East Hartford. So those are the towns that I've included on slide 2 there in the packet. When you look at our budget numbers, we're a little bit higher than Milford and slightly higher than East Hartford. But it's not really apples to apples because some of those libraries are what we're called municipal libraries. Municipal libraries are the libraries that are governed and run by their cities. And association libraries such as West Haven were actually run by a 501c3, the Village Improvement Association. Stratford is very similar to us and set up in that same way as being an association library. Obviously, with most most libraries, our biggest expense is staffing. The most important part of the library goes home every night. We're nothing without the people that work in the library. So when you look at our salary numbers, salary is the lion's share of our budget, and our medical expenses are about 20% of our total budget as well. And that's with us being on the partnership plan. We actually went to the partnership plan, I'm going to say about 7 years ago, when we saw our rising healthcare costs. Our operating expenses are our basic operating. Again, because the library is its own 501c3, we pay all of our own utilities. We pay for all of our own maintenance contracts, our liability insurance for the buildings that we're in. That would be our operating expenses. And then materials would be the materials that go out to the public, such as our digital content, our books, library supplies, program supplies, etc. Staffing levels, I do like to point this out because while right now we are a library with 2 buildings and a bookmobile, Milford, Stratford, and Meriden are all one location libraries. So staffing isn't necessarily indicative of the size because all libraries are all different sizes. For a town of our size, our 2 libraries right now are actually very small for a town of 55,000. If you look at Meriden's new building, I believe it's about 50,000 square foot facility. And these numbers, I will say, all come from the state charts that we all have to submit, state statistics. So these are all fiscal year 23 numbers because we're currently in our fiscal year 24. I'm looking at our numbers for our library. Last year's, our fiscal year 24 budget was 1.635. Our budget, as you can see, I put in numbers going back to 2013. I've been director since 2016 now, so I don't have my predecessors, what their budgetary asks were. But we are still not we are numbers going back to 2014. Our current budget is looking at levels from 2014, and that's just not sustainable. Staffing costs alone, when I first started at the library, our part-time staff were making $8-9 an hour, and that number is close to double that. So staffing costs are a huge, has been a huge increase in the last few years. And we are still, I just want to point out, a very, very small number of the budget. Fiscal year 24, we're at 0.9%. With the increase that I did ask for, that the mayor did put in for the budget, that brings us to the 1% number. When you look at best practices for libraries in the state, that number's at 1.5%, 2%. So I do really appreciate the mayor recognizing that 1% is the goal, and to kind of keep moving forward as far as that goes. One thing I will say too is we've been thankful to be able to open up more hours as our budget has increased. We are at 57 hours per week now at the library, and that's a pretty standard number and where we should be for a town of our size. Library visits in fiscal year 23, we're not quite at pre-pandemic numbers, but we're getting there. That's also with having one less branch. We were at a little over 113,000 this past year alone. So we see more people than any other department in the city. And then the next one. The library does have an endowment. Our endowment has been in place since 2008. This is the funds that we use for everything outside of our general operating. We've done a lot of HVAC repairs through this. We put a new boiler in 2 years ago now, as well as doing normal maintenance issues and part replacements. We've done a lot of elevator repairs as well. The elevator at the main library is 20 plus years old. One anecdote I can give you is that, excuse me, the Milford Library, they had an elevator issue that happened there as a municipal department. Their elevator was down for almost a year and a half. Ours was down for 3 months. So the board acted very quickly to make sure we were to get that repaired, and only because we had to wait for a part through Kone was the reason why it took so long. We do a lot of technology upgrades as well, getting new computers, new databases, and networking. All that does come out of the endowment. I'm happy to report that we're getting a state library grant to upgrade all of our everything in our server closets. That's a $78,000 grant that we're not going to have to pay any funds towards, and that will fully support changing out our server closet. I've been at the library almost 16 years, and nothing's been touched in those closets, so it's long overdue. And we've done your basic building repairs. We did some new stair treads in 2021 at the main library. We've been doing a lot of painting. We did the outside of the library in 2022. We did internal painting of the library in 2020. And in starting next week, we will actually be doing some refresh painting in our reference room as well. And I'd say over the last 4 years, we've spent close to $600,000 from the endowment on library projects. Those are all things that we have not come to the city to ask for. Looking at our computer and Wi-Fi usage, our computer numbers are a little bit less. Again, that's without having Pantino. But if you look at our Wi-Fi, we are still surpassing our numbers from fiscal year 20 and 22. So we're seeing more and more people coming to utilize the library and using our Wi-Fi on a regular basis. Hotspot loans, those have almost tripled in the last 4 years since we started offering those. We could always be bringing in more and more of those, and we'd have a wait list for using the hotspots. Materials borrowed, I will freely admit that I'd like to see that number well over 100,000, but we're getting there. 16% of our checkouts are actually digital, and that's pretty impressive when we're in a town that 1 in 5 do not have internet access at home. So we see a lot more people coming in to kind of use those e-resources that we have. And reference questions, we had just over 10,000 this past year. And that does not include an additional 3,500 in questions that were just technology-based. So we get a lot of people coming in and asking very basic technology questions, and our staff are great and are able to kind of answer all of their questions. As far as programming goes, we gave out 1,000 pairs of Eclipse glasses a couple weeks ago. Was that last week? It was already last week. Hard to believe. And we probably could have given out another 5,000. On Monday alone, we had 500 phone calls about it. It was truly insane, but it was glad to see people utilizing their library for those kinds of things. Like I said, we had just over 900 programs in fiscal year 23. Many of those were on site. We did have a handful of off-site programs, a lot of our summer reading programs, which are all usually sponsored by the Friends of the Library. We started doing a lot of that stuff on the green. And then our attendance for programs, we're at just over 9,000 attendees for all of our various programming. I'd say our top 3 programs are our book clubs. We've actually had to break up a book club at the main library into 3 different groups because we had over 80 participants and no one would be able to speak in a group that large. So we broke it up into 3 different different groups. So there's definitely a need for people to kind of get together in town. And what I really like at the book clubs at the main library is that they're all intergenerational. You see college kids coming in and they're sitting there with seniors and they're all talking about the same book. So it's been really nice to kind of see that in the library. And obviously our story times, those are always popular. We have a number of different story times for different age groups at both locations, and as well as Melissa goes out with Parks and Rec in the summertime and does story times at all the different parks in town as well. And we have a lot of different information sessions, whether it's about, how to sign up for Social Security or Medicare or housing, and those are all programs that usually do fairly well as well. Other pages, we have I put on all the various icons for the different applications you can all use with your brand new library cards that I hope you all received. And a lot of these programs, these are all things that we were able to purchase through the Connecticut Library Consortium. The libraries have a joint partnership where we're able to buy everything in discounts. So things like Job Now, which we can help utilize people for looking up resumes and kind of looking for jobs. Help Now is a homework help tutor for students when they may need it. They can kind of log in and they can talk in real time to another person to kind of help them in that. And then Vet Now is also veteran services for any vets that may need it. Libby is the e-platform for kind of downloading digital content. It's the same thing with Hoopla and Canopy as well. So those are just a few of the databases that we do have at the library. And you can all access almost all of these with your library card through our website as well. We did do a library assessment in 2021 at the behest of City Council. What came out of that assessment, and I do have it if anybody would like to see it. I don't have it with me, it's 98 pages, but I'll be happy to email people that if they'd like to see it. That we really wanted to work in making the library more welcoming. So that's where some of the stairwell updates and the painting has kind of come into play. And we've moved collections around. If anyone's been in the Graham Room in recent years, the Children's Department, we've done a lot of painting up there and painting the shelves. Kind of my motto has always been, the staff always laughs at me, but the library was very, very beige when I started. So we've made it an effort to really just paint things and get it more bright and kind of open. And I think we've kind of achieved that. And we're constantly, again, updating and weeding materials. We did also, through some of the Everyone Learns grants through the state library, added self-checkout machines and some study cubicles that people can rent out that are in the downstairs area of our main library as well. In last year, we also worked with Libraries Without Borders. This was a year-long project. Libraries Without Borders is an international organization that looks at helping libraries kind of meet their patrons where they are. So we did a community assessment through that. They did a lot of staff input. There was an action plan determined. We were really hoping to open like a pop-up library in the Allentown area through this program, and that didn't quite manifest itself. So what we ended up doing is looking at our bookmobile and really kind of giving it a good refresh and really trying to make sure that we had things on the bookmobile that we can then bring to different places in town. And I will say Melissa, our outreach librarian, she's been doing school visits with Washington School since they currently do not have a library in that school right now. So she does regular visits with the school so that way the kids still have access to books and materials as well. So we're really kind of looking at doing as much outreach as we possibly can for the library and hoping people realize that the library is not just the buildings anymore and that there's a lot more that they can get through their library. And we're also doing some new approaches to social media and making sure to kind of show more people, because that's what the library is about, is bringing people together. Our Digital Navigator program, it was originally a state grant that we had applied for, and our previous grant writer for the city had approached us about doing this program. I will say we have had to pause the program while we're waiting for the funds from the city, but we're hoping to see that rectified fairly soon. And again, this is doing technology help with patrons who are looking for a specific form, specific criteria, and we're really concentrating on seniors, veterans, and people who are new to this country and making sure to help them meet those digital needs that they may have. Originally with the program, we were giving out laptops with this after the third visit. Through talking through UHY and with the ARPA committee, we have changed that to a long-term checkout. But we were hoping to really bring that program back up and running again because we do have over 200 people on the wait list for that program. And I am happy to say we are also going to be partnering with 7 other towns doing a regional digital navigator program. This is the first of the kind in the country, and we're going to be partnering with Hamden, Woodbridge, New Haven, Naugatuck, Derby, Wallingford, and Bridgeport. And we're going to be kind of sharing different what we call digital navigators, kind of staff to kind of help with those technology appointments. So then people will be able to, if they maybe don't speak English, and if there's somebody who's in Hamden who speaks Pashto, that person will come to our library to then be able to sit in that person's native language and show them how to utilize computers and technology. So that program should be getting off starting in the next couple months. Arlington, we are still working on getting a library in Arlington. We did purchase 634 Orange Avenue. We also have a state construction grant that was approved in November of 21. We're continuing to look at other potential locations to see what we can make sure that this project happens and the library opens as soon as possible with the lowest cost possible. We are also in the quiet phase of the capital campaign with the goal of raising $2 million as well. And with that, that's the quick and dirty of the library if anyone has questions.
Thank you very much, Colleen. How many employees do you currently have working at the library?
We have 31.
Okay. Do you have a breakdown of their salaries?
Not with me, but yes, I do have that.
Do you mind sending that to us?
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Kalani? Councilwoman Heffernan?
Thanks for coming. And
Thank you.
Brought your people with you.
Yeah,
too.
always.
Thank you. So, you're an association library?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So an association library basically means that we're our own 501c3. So even though we get public funding to run the library, we are governed by the library board, not by the municipality. It's very unique to New England that libraries are set up this way. A lot of times, it's about 40%, I think, in New England that are kind of set up similarly. Some towns are unique, like Hamden is a municipal library with all their funding coming from the city, but their board is a governing board, even though they're a municipality, and that's usually not the case. It's usually one or the other. Every library does have a board, but some of those boards are just advisory. They may help with policies and procedures, where ours is a governing board, which then basically runs the library.
So the difference between like Milford and our library, and is that all the expenses come out of, like you out of your budget?
I forgot to mention that. So
out of your budget, your medical expenses,
Yeah.
your pensions, everything.
Like Meriden and Milford especially, that budget does not include their medical expenses. So their staff medical expenses come out of the city's budget. So when you look at that, you figure ours is almost $300,000. So that's when you start comparing those numbers, their budget's actually higher than ours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome. Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Colleen. How are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Couple things. Because when I was looking through the budget, I saw the library. I was like, okay, this is going to be a 30-second thing. And then we got, how come this wasn't in here?
Every single year I've asked, this is my 9th year doing this, that I'd like to see the city council and the mayor get a line by line of what the library spends the funds on. And they always say that this is what's in the budget. So even though it's that one line, because it's not just personnel, it's a whole different, it's utilities, it's supplies, it's contracts. So
This would be a question I should ask
yes.
another department.
Yeah, I'd say the finance director, because I would prefer that everyone sees the breakdown so that you can kind of see
100%.
where the funds are going.
100%. So with this budget here that's in this book, and just say this passes, you also have Allentown budget here with a cost of $1.6 million. How would that is not in this budget?
No, that's without Allentown.
That's without Allentown, so that would be something separate.
Yeah, I mean, I think
we're really not looking at it being done anyways, right? Building or whatever.
I'd say, I mean, best case scenario, I think we're looking at fiscal year halfway through 26, probably.
Okay. Now that property that you purchased, I should say, not you personally, but the group. Good luck if you did. Is that something you're looking to now sell to?
I would say we're not
money?
I would say we're not selling that property until there's a library open in Allentown and operational.
Excuse me. You just have to come up to the podium if you'd like to speak.
Only because that's a significant amount of money.
Yes.
And to wait for it, that could go towards, maybe the new library elsewhere, or pay for, whatever. So
We need to have assurances that the library will be open before that property is sold.
no, I understand,
Yeah.
and believe me, I'm not being difficult. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate
Yeah.
here. So yeah, it's just a hard. I don't know if it's going to be a hard sell to the residents that yes, we built this, and now you're selling the property, and that you're going to get that X amount of dollars just back, and then it basically costs the residents and
Well, the library was bought with endowment funds, so that property rather was bought with endowment funds, so that did not come out of city public funding.
No, that part yeah, that's true.
And we still get residents coming in on a regular basis asking about Allentown and when is there going to be a library in Allentown again. That's a question on a lot of people's minds still on a regular basis.
We probably can't talk about that. That's it for now.
Councilwoman Heffernan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Lion Network. What is that?
So Libraries Online is the consortia that we're in. So in order to save costs, a lot of libraries kind of band together for things like our integrated library system, and that's where the software that we use that keeps track of all the different books and things in our patron records. That's all through Lion. We also do our email through there, our website through there. We also collaborate with our ebooks. So we purchase. Lion as a consortium, there's about 30 libraries in Lion. We all pool our money, so we spend about $130,000 per year on digital content, and that money all goes towards the 30 libraries in there. If any of you follow some of the state legislative stuff, there are some bills that we're looking to get passed to help decrease the cost of what we're paying for ebooks because it's such an astronomical cost. So right now, when I buy an ebook, it costs me $85, and after 2 years, it disappears. And then we have to buy it again. So we've purchased things like Harry Potter 3 or 4 times because they're continually popular books. They're having that consortium and being able to have that pooling our funds, we're able to save money that way. And that's why we belong to Lion. And we're also able to, through the state, there's a program called Borrow It. So everybody with your library card, with your West Haven library card, you can walk into any library in the state and utilize that library card. But with us being in Lion, we can also get materials from other libraries fairly quickly. So if you see a book that's listed as in Hamden, through our delivery service, we're able to get that book to you probably within 2 or 3 days. Then you can take that book out. And because, again, our book budget's not where it should be, by sharing our resources like that, we're able to kind of pool our different materials that we have to be able to loan to as many people as possible.
Very well. Yep, absolutely.
So how many libraries are in the consortium?
It's 29 or 30, I forget.
29 or 30, and that how much could you estimate? I know you probably don't have an exact figure, but about how much does that save you, or us as?
So Lion there's another consortium as well that we kind of belong to called Connecticut Library Consortium. So Connecticut Library Consortium they're kind of a line item in the state library budget where we all buy into, and that saves us almost $40,000. Every single thing we buy through the library, we buy at a discounted rate. Whether we're buying pencils on Amazon, we're buying books from Baker and Taylor, we're buying DVDs through Midwest Tape, we get all of that stuff through discounts. Even the databases and things that we get, those are all with a discount as well. So we're able to basically make our dollar go that much further because of belonging to Connecticut Library Consortium, CLC.
You're doing an amazing job saving money. Thank you.
We're trying.
You're the coupon queen.
Councilman Donovan?
Just one quick, Colleen. The mayor seen this?
Yes.
Or she has?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm assuming she did. I don't like assuming because you know what happens, but because the numbers are the same, that's
yes.
the reason why.
When I sat down, and I really appreciate this is the first year that I sat down with the mayor and the finance director to go over the library's budget and what I'd be looking to ask for. So I do appreciate having that meeting. Because we also, the last couple of years being a 501c3, and I didn't bring this up, but we were able to get some federal funding and employee retention credit, which is the only reason we've been able to keep our hours at what we're at. Because being a 501c3, we were able to get some other funding outside of the city, and that a lot of that funding is now going away, so we don't have access to that anymore.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm new to the council, so I'm trying to understand the relationship between the city and the library. I understand that you're a distinct organization. You have your own 501c3. Does the city contribute to your operating budget, or do we fund the operating budget?
The city basically funds the
We
operating.
fund the
budget.
operating budget. Okay. And then you use whatever other funds you have available. For
Yeah. So
larger
then,
capital expenses?
anything that's outside of the general operating comes out of the endowment.
Okay, so that's capital expenses.
Yep.
Bulk purchases, or I mean, does that do we help fund purchasing of books or any of the periodicals?
Yep.
So that's part of the
Yes.
operating costs.
Yes.
Okay, so it's anything that's not anticipated.
Yes.
Okay. With respect to the digital navigator program, what is the eligibility criteria for that?
So my staff will sit down and talk to somebody, and basically we're looking for people who are lower income. English may not be their first language. They're senior and veterans. Those are the top kind of 4 criteria we're looking at, and then kind of seeing where their level is. Like, are we talking about somebody who maybe has no idea of how to even use a mouse, or is this somebody who just doesn't know how to set up an email address? Are they looking to maybe figure out how to set up a resume so they can apply for jobs online? So it's kind of trying to walk people through that stuff, because there's a lot of the questions we get at the library are of that kind of nature.
And you converted this from a equipment, I don't want to say handout, but with giving it to them.
Yeah, I will say through the regional program, we're going to be able to give out laptops again. So this was at the request of the ARPA committee that we change it to the 6-month loan. I would prefer to be giving them out, quite frankly.
What happens if a piece of equipment does not come back or it comes back damaged? Are we on the hook for it?
We would be going after the person for that. It's basically the same way we would go after somebody, not to go after, but we would follow up with somebody saying that you owe us, for the damage to this property. We've had a handful of hotspots over the years that maybe haven't come back. So then that patron, unfortunately, doesn't come back to the library because they owe us the cost of the materials. And we are a fine-free library. We did go fine-free in September of 2020. I will say we see more materials coming back now because of that, because we are fine-free. And we don't have as much problem with theft like we used to have.
So people bring back items that they borrow when they don't have to pay versus when
Correct.
they do have to pay?
Correct.
Okay. The Bookmobile, does that also visit locations like Preet and Surfside?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What happened to the employees that were employed in the Allentown branch when that branch closed?
When that branch closed, we had a couple turnover at the same time. Our branch manager for Ora Mason had moved on to another job, so we transferred the branch manager from Allentown to Ora Mason. The full-time staff member who'd been at Pantino for 42 years, the entire time had been open, she actually retired as well. And the part-time staff got then absorbed into the part-time staff. Part-time staff, we always have a large turnover, so they just kind of fell in with the other part-time staff.
So I see from the FY25, you're comparing it to the FY23 when Allentown was not open. It was
We closed in September of 2020.
Okay, so assuming that Allentown does open at some point, what kind of an impact does that have on the budget? Do you have just a rough idea?
Well, it's going to be similar to Ora Mason's numbers, because I'm looking to have the same staffing level there, the same kind of books, etc. I'm really hoping we don't have to deal with an elevator, but if we're into an existing building, we will have to deal with an elevator probably.
Can you explain to me the rationale again of you purchased a building and you're holding on to that building until...
No, we purchased land.
You purchased land.
We purchased land. So when September of 2020, when the library was closed, we did actually put a bid in for 1 Forest Road. We would have preferred to stay there. We'd been there for 42 years. Unfortunately, the previous council in administration elected not to go for the library's bid for that building. So even though we put in $500,000, to purchase it, they sold it to somebody else for significantly less than that. So when that happened, we started looking around in the city, and then everyone knows there's not a lot of open space and land in Allentown. We started looking at a number of different properties. We had a small committee with city council members and with the corporate council and looking at different places in town. And they had brought to us 668 Orange Avenue, and then the property next door to that was for sale. 668 is very, very small, and it's there was some remediation that needed to be done on that property as well. So we did. So then we looked into further buying 634. So we did buy 634 with the hope that 668 would then get deeded over to the library, so we could have that whole space for building the library. And that's when I put in for the library construction grant through the state. And over the last couple of years, there've been a couple other buildings we've been asked to look at. Every time someone asks us to look at a building, we've always gone and looked at it or looked at other property. But we do own 634 outright. I mean, truthfully, rehabbing an old facility is going to be significantly cheaper and would be more beneficial. But we want to make sure there's a library in Allentown. We can build on just 634 alone and not need 668, but it would be easier to have that space as well.
You can build on 634?
Yes. So we can build just there, but ideally we'd like to be, if we end up being on 634, we would like to have that full block there.
634 and 668 are adjoining parcels?
Yes.
So do you need 668 to be part of the parking lot or to expand the building?
What we would do is if we had 668, we'd be able to have a larger parking lot for the facility and we'd be able to do a one-floor library. I hate dealing with elevator maintenance because there's so much of it. So it'd be nice not to have to deal with. That's one less kind of maintenance contract expense that we'd have to deal with. Plus there's the additional, say, 4,000 square footage you'd need for having the two different stairwells because you need to be able to have proper egress. So we'd be able to do a smaller, more concise building if we did a one-floor facility.
So it's not that you're just holding on to 634, that's a backup plan if you
Yes.
don't have another location.
Yeah, so if another location pops up, then we're obviously going to also look at that as well. But the plan is to make sure that we get a library in Allentown.
I'm not familiar with the properties. Is 668 owned by a
Right now, so it was foreclosed on through the previous administration, and I believe right now the city owns that property.
And you're negotiating with the city?
We've been talks. Yeah.
Talks. Okay. There's no averages here, like in some of our other budgets. Is your budget in line with what your actuals are?
Right now we are a little bit over budget because we did have some salary increases mid-year. We've also had some unforeseen expenses that have kind of come up with maintenance as well. And I'm waiting for the digital navigator. I'm waiting for about $20,000 from the digital navigator program as well that goes towards salaries.
And the salary increases are union contractual?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I guess my last question is at basically 1.8, you're comfortable this is a good number? It's more than previous, but it's not.
1.8 gets us to status quo. So that gets us to be able to stay with the hours that we currently have, with the staffing level that we currently have, with the supply line that we currently have, with all of our different databases, what we have. It doesn't add anything. That gets us right where we need to be. We've been cut so often that's why it's a larger ask for the library, because it's just, and again, everyone knows expenses have all gone rising up, salaries have gone up.
So this gets you where you used to be.
Yes.
Now it keeps you the status quo without having another branch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking to increase your hours. Do you have a particular goal in mind for doing
No,
that?
our hours are good. Like
Gotcha.
where we are right now, our hours are good. I think in the future, and again, this would be a conversation with the union. My staff would hate me for saying it. We'd be looking at Sunday hours, but.
And what about your staffing levels? Are those okay?
They're okay.
Not great, but okay.
We could be. I mean, we could always be a little bit better. There's always call outs and shuffling people around a little bit, but we're decent.
Do employees bounce around between the branches?
Yes,
if needed?
yeah. So our part-time staff all work at all the different branches, and our full-time staff that are at Warren Mason do one Saturday a month at the main library as well to help fill in.
All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Councilwoman Tucker.
The question I guess I have is, you did say that the staff they're city employees.
So they actually technically work for the Village Improvement Association. So they're staff members for the board, or they're actually not technically city employees.
Okay. So the union contractual agreement is not the city's union?
No, it's through the Village Improvement Association.
Okay. And the building that you talked about, you bought the building, you own it outright. And the one that you're trying to purchase, you said, is adjacent to it?
No,
or
so
is it
that's
connected?
it's just land right now. There's nothing on the land.
Okay, so there's no building. It's
There's
just
no
the
building.
land. And you want the building next to it.
We want like the land next door as well.
So it's just land. And you
Just
have
land.
to then build the building.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's what you're looking for funding for, is to build the building.
Well, that's not what this is just for our operating budget. But in the future, yes, we are looking to, really. That's why that's why we have a capital campaign running right now to help raise funds. We're going to be looking at various grants, and it means as well for bringing funding in for building that library.
I see. Okay. And then you have an interlibrary loan program, you said?
Yeah, so with everyone's library card, like I said, you can go to any library in the state and take the materials out. We can also then, if you come into our library and say there's a book at New Haven that you want that we don't have, we can also ask them to send it to us. And through the interlibrary loan system, we're able to get that for you.
So it's only within the state that we do that? Or is it outside of the state?
You don't see very often outside.
Okay.
It happened once every couple of years, I'd say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What's that? Councilman McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just wanted to, there are a couple of questions I wanted to ask. You said there were 31 employees.
Yep.
How many of them are full-time versus part-time?
I want to say it's 1714.
1714?
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask a couple of things. I noticed that on your 23 budget, your security salary went down. Is that a new security person, or are we just, because it went from...
It's a newer person.
Newer person, okay. Then also, the transportation, I see transportation for this 25 budget, it says $1,500, then it says transportation, mileage, and gas, $1,500. But when I look back on 23, I only see it listed there once, transportation.
That might be a mistake that I did not pick up on.
Okay. And then your auditing and payroll, did it really go from 2763 to now 10.5?
So that is supposed to include our audit as well. So the fiscal year 23, our audit was not paid in 23. It was actually paid this year in 24, which is why that number is not in the actual.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
You're very welcome. Any other questions for Colleen? Councilman Locks.
Thanks so much. Thanks for putting this together. The PowerPoint, it's excellent.
Welcome.
And thanks for your patience tonight, because I know we started late. So on page 2, the first slide there in the upper right quadrant where it says hours, what is that trend?
So fiscal year 20 is when we closed March 13th, 2020 to the public. We opened again July 1st. We were one of the first 20 libraries in the state to reopen again. But we opened very slowly. So we were open by appointment only. Our staff were kind of on rotating shifts. So then we were kind of gearing towards back up. We also had a significant budget cut in fiscal year 20 and 21. So I was not able to open the libraries even more than what was here. Fiscal year 2020, 22, we were a little bit better. So we were able to able to open up a little bit more. And then in fiscal year 23, we were open to the most hours we've been open in probably 20 years.
Thank you for that. When it comes to the trend on the library visits, obviously it's trending in the right direction, which is great. In FY20, it was 131,000.
Yeah, 21's a COVID year, so...
I was going to say, is that...
Yeah,
is
so
that
we had a lot, so we were doing... During the pandemic, we were also doing a lot of drive-by. So people could come, if they wanted to take materials out, they could tell us what time they were coming to the library, and we'd put books out on a table for them to kind of take materials out. Our computers, we were wiping down every single computer after every single use, so we would have people only allowed to sit at the computers for an hour at a time. We didn't really have chairs out for anybody to be able to kind of sit in the library for any period of time. And then things kind of slowly started ramping back up again. And then I'd say like last year, we were able to kind of start really opening back up again. But people weren't coming to programs as much. They weren't coming to the library as much. I would say this year is the first year that we're really kind of really ramping back up to where we were prior to fiscal year 20.
Okay, and the staffing cost trend with the amount of visits that you're having? which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so we also had 3 retirements in fiscal year 21
Okay.
as well, so that's why you see the staffing number kind of dip. And as through attrition, when we were open as many hours, we didn't have as many part-timers. So if we're only open 35 hours, I don't need 12 part-timers.
Sure,
So we didn't have as many. And then as we've opened up more hours, we've needed more staff.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
When it comes to the endowment, how's the endowment trending, or is that a trade secret you can't share?
It's up and down, like with the market.
Yeah.
It's up and down on a regular basis.
So it looks like you spent 150 grand every year over the past 4 years. Does your budget reflect not having to dip into your rainy day fund?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's good. Okay. No, this is great. Thanks for doing this. And, you meet people, and I met you that one day, and, there are times where you meet people and you can tell them that they're really committed, and I could tell you're really committed.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for that.
I
Thanks,
haven't
folks.
worked here for 16 years for nothing.
Thanks for your time.
All set, Councilman Lux?
Yep.
All right. Councilwoman Tucker.
Appreciated having the bookmobile when I was a kid because I grew up on the bookmobile with Lee and May.
Oh, yep.
All those years ago, we got on there and we used to read the Curious George books.
Yeah.
And hang out on the bookmobile, so I miss that. And I think every kid should have that.
Yeah, no, Melissa's really expanded quite a bit, and she goes to as many places as she possibly can. Her goal is to be not in the library as little as possible.
All set? Councilman Fargo.
Aside from the independent programs that you have, what are the top things that the patrons go to use? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have Google, so I had to go and find an encyclopedia.
The beauty of a library is that people can come in to do anything. We have people who come in and sit who are there more hours than I am and sit in chairs all day. We have people who come in to take out DVDs every single day. The staff know before we even put the DVD on the shelf, I have to call Frank because we know he's going to want that DVD. We've got people who come in to take out materials like anything. We have people who come in. We have a toy library we brought in fiscal year 21. So people come in to they can take toys out to bring home to see if their kids even like those toys before they even purchase those. That was through a grant as well. So we have people kind of coming in for all different things. Our meeting rooms are used constantly. We could always use more meeting space. Those study carrels that we put in we have people using those almost all day, every day. So it kind of choose your own adventure, I guess. It's whatever people want to be able to use the library for. That's what it's there for.
Do each branch have enough computers and equipment to meet the demand, or is there if I were to walk in and I need to use the computer, is there going to be typically one available right then and there? Do I have to wait?
I would say Ora Mason, you're not going to wait. At the main library, every once in a while that happens.
And how are those purchased? Are they part of your?
That's not in our general operating. So typically we go through the my digital librarian, who's awesome, will come to me and say, hey, it's time for us to do a computer refresh. So we try to do every 3 to 5 years. We'll purchase, say, 8 to 10 computers to then replace computers. And then some of the really old ones she may rehab and then put that somewhere else. So we're kind of like moving equipment around all the time.
Is that because the main library has more of a demand, or Mason?
Yeah,
not,
so I will say Pantino saw a lot of computer use. The reason why our computer use numbers is still down is because we don't have Pantino anymore. Because that library saw more people coming in for technology help and less kind of checking materials out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Heffernan.
So I heard you're talking about meeting space. I was actually at a meeting in Ora Mason today, and I noticed how often do you have the art changed in Ora Mason? Because I noticed there has been a couple of displays or exhibits.
Yeah, so Maria, our branch manager over at Ora Mason, she's been working with Eleanor Slumba now for probably about 6 to 8 months now. So every couple of months, they'll bring a new artist in, usually a local artist. They'll do a little art show, and then she'll kind of put new things up on the walls. And it's been really popular. People have really loved doing it.
You don't do it at the main. Have you ever considered about doing it at the main?
We haven't done it at the main only because I'm not sure where to do it.
Because Case Memorial Library's been doing it for 20
Yeah.
something years. I mean, they
Yeah.
have the upstairs with the
We don't.
beautiful.
Yeah, we don't really necessarily have a space. I hesitate to do it like in our stairwell because things get ripped off the walls sometimes when people are walking by, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, it's something we could consider doing at the main. We just haven't really thought about it too far.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Councilwoman Coletti?
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. So when we first joined the council, I got a very nice card with a very nice note along with the library card. And I have to say that I hadn't had one probably in about 20 years. So I really appreciated that. And I think for the library, people traditionally think of it just as, or thought of it as a place for books. But I think it's evolved so much, and especially in West Haven after coming to visit the library, talking with you a little bit more. The programming that you're doing is really second to none that I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
It's so valuable, especially. I think while West Haven is trying to fill some gaps, there are some gaps. There's not really a community center that I know of, and when I was growing up, my community center in my town was a lifesaver for me. So to go and have that safe space, I think is very important. I think you fill gaps as far as the arts go, and programming, and I think it really has served as an equalizer for those that have access to the services and programs, but may not have access to pay for those services privately. So I just wanted to comment on my experience with you in the library in West Haven since coming here, and it's been really fantastic. You do a great job on social media too.
Well, my staff have been having a lot of fun with it. They had National Pajama Day today, and I was very, very jealous of that one. I'm like, I can't go to the city council meeting in my pajamas.
And it's a place for communities.
I was in the library today. You could have.
Yeah. And I think it's a place to connect because coincidentally, the one day that I visited you, I ran into someone there that I hadn't seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone's already asked pretty much all of the questions. I really just wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you. And I will say, too, I forgot to mention this. We've just started this week working with the health department, having social worker working part-time at the library, too. And I think that's going to be really, really beneficial for people who maybe don't want to come visit her at City Hall. They'll be able to see somebody at the library, too.
Oh, one thing I also wanted to mention, I think there's been a need for warming centers for a while in West Haven. And I think this was the first season that the mayor was able to work it out with you all to help assist, at least in the meantime, with the warming centers where there was definitely a need. So it just fills so much more than people may necessarily think of at first thought. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Quick comment. Councilman Laux.
That card was impressive. When I got that card, I was like, that's impressive.
So I also just had rotator cuff surgery, so I did all of those 2 days at a time.
Oh, did you
writing
really?
them. Yeah.
That makes it extra special.
I was like, it's all right. My handwriting sucks anyway. On a good
Thank
day,
you.
So.
Councilwoman Heffernan.
I don't know if you're going to bring the goats in pajamas back, talking about pajamas, but if you do, please announce it to the world. It's the best thing. I don't know if I'll be allowed to go after knocking the 3-year-old down to get to the goat. But, the goat incident of 2019. But thank you very much. So
Of
it's
course.
really, some of the programs are wonderful.
The mini horses were a big hit in March.
Oh,
They were a big hit.
thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Colleen? Thank you very much, Colleen, for your presentation and for answering all of our questions.
All right, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
We are going to recess until we reconvene tomorrow at 6 p.m.